Thank you for tuning in to No Sudden Moves Radio. And remember, stay on the proven path so you don't risk falling behind. Here at Business Legends, we don't overthink it. Look around and see what everyone else is doing. If it's working for them, it will work for you.
Welcome to Wait It Out, where we believe there's no reason to act now. The opportunity will still be there when the timing is better.
The age of disruption isn't coming, it's here. And the boldest move isn't following the crowd, it's following your why. I'm Patrick Ledden, and you're listening to Disruption Lab. Today on Disruption Lab, we're going to challenge a quiet assumption that holds a lot of people back. Most people think the biggest barriers they face are out there somewhere. The market, their boss, their circumstances. But more often than not, the real constraint is internal. It's the story we've accepted, the role we've settled into, the version of ourselves we've decided is good enough. And if you're going to be a positive disruptor, that's where the real work begins. I first met Kathy Caprino when she interviewed James Patterson and me about our book, Disrupt Everything and Win, for an article she was writing as an ongoing contributor to Forbes. The article was on strategies for navigating change. James and I were in New York City at the World Business Forum getting ready to speak. The moment we walked into the room where Kathy was waiting, it was immediately clear she was welcoming, sharp, and fully present. It turned into a great conversation. I remember thinking at the time, this is someone I'd like to continue the conversation with down the road. Kathy is a globally recognized career and leadership coach, a senior contributor at Forbes, a former corporate vice president turned therapist, and now executive coach, and the host of the Finding Brave podcast. She's worked with thousands of professionals around the world, helping them break through what's holding them back and build careers and lives of real meaning and impact. What I appreciate about Kathy's work is that she doesn't just talk about the success. She talks about the truth about fear, about blind spots, about the patterns that quietly keep people stuck, and what it actually takes to move beyond them. So today, we're going to explore what it really means to find brave and how to disrupt the internal barriers that might be limiting your growth. Well, hello, Kathy. How are you doing today?
I'm so well, Patrick. Thank you for having me. So good to see you. So good to chat.
So good to see you too. You and I were chatting for a while before we got started. I told the listeners on the front end that you and I met at the conference, the WOBE conference in New York last fall when James Patterson and I were out talking. And I said to them that the moment I walked in the door, when Jim and I walked in the door and met you that day, I was like, this is a different conversation we're about to have in this interview, because every other one, it felt a little bit more sterile, a little bit more like, okay, you're the next person in line to be asked for us to ask questions to. When I walked in with you, I just felt this like warmth and like, this lady's smart and she is engaging. And I want the listeners to know a little bit about your background and what brought that person into the room that day.
I just have to thank you. So much. You wrote on LinkedIn something like, when someone asks, I'm choking up, asks the question and that changes the whole conversation. That's what happened with Kathy. I read that 7 times. It means the world to me that you had that feeling. Thank you for that. So what do I say contributes to that? It's been an interesting long road, but, briefly, the trajectory was, and I can talk a lot, so, bring out the hook when I need to stop. I always was interested in ideas, and I went to school never thinking that I was really going to be an author, but I studied English lit and, was a year in London, University of London, about ideas. And the dream for me was getting out and joining a great publisher, because I really thought, let me build up other authors. And so that was a circuitous journey from Wiley to Cambridge University Press to Macmillan Book Clubs. And then I got into marketing and research. And I did love research because that's about how people think. But as I spent the 18 years in corporate life, as I hit 40, I would say I had a lot of bumps that I experienced. And those bumps turned into full blown crises. So that was one thing that really shaped me. What do I mean by that? Sexual harassment, gender discrimination, bias, toxic colleagues, narcissistic bosses. Honestly, Patrick, I truly didn't know what hit me. And back then, I did go to a career coach, but it was brand new. And it was a bunch of assessment tests. And I'll never forget the guy said, well, looks like you're in a great field for yourself. And I'm like, in what way does my data say that? Because I wanted to poke my eye out with a stick. So just like we were talking before, sometimes a breakdown will happen that is out of your control. And so 1 month after moving to a new home was 9/11. And 1 month after that, I was laid off. And truthfully, I was promised the moon at that company. So I went to a lawyer, and I'll just say it ended well for me in that way. But I was crushed, I was devastated, and I was lost. And I tell this story a lot, but I'm sitting in my therapist's office crying. And he said, I know from where you sit, this looks like the worst crisis you've ever faced. But from where I sit, it's the first moment you can choose who you want to be in the world. Now, who do you want to be? So the funny part of it is I went blank, because if I knew the answer, I think I would have been on that path. And I went, I don't know, but I want to be you. And we laughed. He said, what does that mean to you? And I said, I want to help people, not hurt people and be hurt. And from that conversation, I became a marriage and family therapist, which was absolutely life-changing. And one of the biggest pieces of that is in therapy, and I think it's true in coaching, in every conversation, you can't help someone who you're sitting in judgment of. And a lot of my clients were doing things that I sat in judgment of. And I learned that you have to have love in your heart for the people you're with. Love. And I remember my supervisor said, you've got to find some way to love this person, this individual. And I went, love? I don't think so. I feel like that has been a life-changing experience. And then there's coaching. So 20 years of doing that. So I think that's shaped how I even view work, which is it's about learning about you. It's about understanding what makes you tick. And I do think I see things about people that maybe other coaches or other people don't see. Did that answer the question?
No, it did. It did.
Long answer.
I am sorry that some of those things that you experienced in those roles, and then obviously with the 9/11 and the home and all. I mean, that's a lot to go through. I noticed that, and I think I see it myself sometimes too. And I'm pretty good at trying to say, "Hey, folks, I see this in myself." So I'm in the front of the line for every mess up out there. But I do think there can be moments sometimes where we become indifferent toward other people, and sometimes even people we're leading, where we just
Sure.
right, oh, that person's just XYZ. I've labeled them in a certain way, and it's easier just to kind of get rid of this person or dismiss this person or to marginalize and push them to the side so I don't have to deal with it. And I hate to say that I probably have done that at times, but probably have. And so how
That's
do you?
fair.
So how do you in the moments where you're I went from not liking this person's performance or what this person did or who this person is sitting across from me as you're doing counseling with them, whatever it might be, to go, I'm going to find something about this person I truly love.
What is the question? How do I do
Yeah,
that?
how do you do that?
Well, I think what you're describing, when we are dismissive of someone or we're finding them difficult, it's usually that they're rubbing up against something that's hard for us. That could be a difference of opinion, a different style, a neurodivergent style that we don't understand, different values. There's a reason. Like if you
Hmm.
came to me and said, I think I'm being dismissive, I would immediately go to not why, because I was trained that why puts people on the defensive,
Yeah,
because
it
now you
does.
have to justify, right? But tell me what's underneath that. What in particular makes you want to dismiss this person? And unless you're, wholeheartedly a bad person, which nobody is really, you're going to have reasons. So, in that case, can I do it with you?
Yeah.
In a case that comes to mind about, oh, I think I just wanted them to leave. Can you talk about what you think the biggest factor was in that?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So, and this isn't a recent thing. I think I've grown
Yeah,
as a
I'm
leader over
sure
the
you
years,
have.
right? This is really the times I was in the military
Uh-huh.
where I felt like the stakes are high. This person doesn't get it. They don't value what we value as an organization. So next, I mean, that's just kind of what would go through my mind. And maybe I felt, and
Mm.
I wouldn't, in some of those cases, probably think about, well, what drove this person to join the service in the
Yeah.
first place? What's their motivation? What's going on here? I think I could, in my mind's eye at the time, kind of go, stakes are high. We,
We
I
don't
need
have
to get up.
time to, I don't have
And
time to bring
so
you along.
over the course of time, I learned that was like when I was a lieutenant, and then I became a company commander, and I kind of worked my way through and understood and began to appreciate what everybody brought to the table. But I'm just thinking early on, if I'm being fully honest, there were probably some times where I'm like, hey, we got to get stuff done, and
Yeah.
this person's slowing us down.
I mean, I think that's fair. And I think that happens in our institutions and our organizations now. Um, what would you do? Can I ask you? It's like you're on my podcast. What would you do differently if you were in that position now? Would it have to be that way that they're not getting it and it's going to put everyone else at risk and we can't?
I mean, there's certainly situations where it could have still played out that way, but I think there
Yeah.
were probably some steps I could have taken ahead of those. In retrospect, 30 plus years later, it's a little bit easier to go, okay, I see what I could have done differently. One is to recognize that there are things that are vitally important in any job you do and in the military as well, where the stakes are really high.
Yeah.
But most things aren't that. Most things are other things where we do have the space maybe to hit pause and to explore a little bit. I think also at that time, I was pretty driven. I still think I'm a fairly driven person, but I think I've kind of rounded myself out a little bit more. So there I was pretty driven, and I could easily see everything was so competitive in nature
Yeah.
that it was really easy to see, okay, this person is as physically capable or whatever
Right.
that might be. And in the
Right.
military, those were big things at the time. So
Of
I think
course.
that there's just things like that I've just learned to slow down a little bit, put things in perspective, ask a few more questions. That's one thing that's been good for me, Kathy, is through even today in podcast interviewing or writing books or whatever it might be, I ask a lot of questions, and
I know it's so
I'm always
fun.
surprised by the answers. Uh, my father-in-law is a physician. He was a physician. He retired recently, but he was a physician for like up until he was 88 years old. So for many, many years, 50 plus years as a physician. And he had this expression. He said, the questions are always the same, but the answers are always different. And that's really impacted me over the years to think about,
Beautiful.
you ask the same questions, but you got to listen to what people say on the other side that makes you realize. And over the course of time, some of those people, I guess, that I think that, boy, I may have been dismissive of people in that situation. I probably could have figured out ways to love them too.
Oh, well, we learned. We
Yeah.
learned. Being transparent, I realize having coached so many people, what I have to fight against is I can see everything. We were talking about my 13-page career path assessment that they fill out. Truly, I can see all their wants, their challenges, what they think their strengths are, what I think their strengths are, what I think is holding them back, what happened in childhood that it was pivotal, that's active today. But as we know, as a coach or any helper, you can't make assumptions. It's dangerous to make assumptions. You have to ask the questions. And we certainly know it doesn't help to just leap in and try to fix.
Hmm.
But I know if I'm a little overly caffeinated or, I'm wanting to see that person, we've had this conversation now 5 sessions in a row. I really want a breakthrough for you. And every time I eclipse that process of slow the heck down, let me make sure I understand, it doesn't go as well. So we're still learning, we're still incorporating. I'm sure you are everything you write about disruption, and I'm sure you think to yourself, okay, that conversation probably could have gone a little differently,
Oh,
right?
sure. Yeah, yeah. That's part of the human experience.
That's it.
That's what makes it fun.
That's
Sometimes
right. We're
is to do
always
that and go,
learning. We're always
I could have taken it a
improving.
little differently. Yeah.
That's it.
You mentioned the assessment that you use. I'd love if you just explain a little bit, maybe give the context of when you use it and what people get from it, what you get from it, how it's helpful to people.
Thank you. So the lens I have when I was a market researcher, I've always loved qualitative over quantitative because the quantitative is going to give you a number, but the why is less there, I find. That's my view. So this is 13 pages of questions I wish someone had asked me 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and I swear I don't believe I would have made some of the same mistakes that I made. And so I'll tell you why. It's asking, for instance, every job you ever had, what you loved, what you hated, what you're most proud of, what you're taking away and want to continue with, how you would rate it. So there's that whole trajectory from their view. There's also give me some pivotal moments from your childhood. And, having been a therapist, and I don't do therapy and coaching, but wow, can I see things? Like I work with a lot of women, for instance,
Hmm.
and certain cultures as well. And I relate to this. Anyone who's heard my podcast knows this story. My parents were first generation Americans. Dad was Italian, mom was Greek. They're in heaven now. And they were huge supporters. But I could not, for instance, speak up to my mother. I could not challenge my Greek mother. It went badly. I mean, there was no abuse or anything. She would just kind of withhold love. And so what happens when you have that often is you grow up not being able to speak up. It's not safe. Well, when I see evidence of that, I know I can see everything. No wonder you're struggling. No wonder the boundaries are not what they need to be. No wonder you're not advancing the way you hope because you've never once asked for a promotion or, so I'm seeing signs of how they've been shaped and how that's active today. I'm also seeing challenges that repeat. So one thing I know is something that repeats in your life over and over, it's not random. You
Hmm.
are co-creating or sustaining it. I don't mean you deserve it. I mean co-creation. And then I ask them their biggest dreams. And I ask if they won the lottery, what would they stop working and what would they dream? And often people, before COVID, it was, I can't tell you how many professionals said they wanted to run a bed and breakfast. So I would say, okay, here's your task. I want you to go visit and speak to 3 owners of bed and breakfast in the next month and tell me what you learned. Ask them, how do you thrive in this? What's the personality? Blah, blah, blah. I can tell you not one of these 100 people came back and said they want to run a bed and breakfast. They love to build events, or the cuisine part of it was great, or, you know, goes on and on. So all of this gives me clues to who they really are, even when they're trying to hide who they really are. And what their dreams are, but often those are dreams that are projected as fantasy, like it looks great to be in nonprofit. Well, I have a lot of clients who are in nonprofit who would like to get out. I mean, no ecosystem is perfect, right?
Yeah.
So it's giving me all those clues that some people have said, wow, I got more in one session with you than I've gotten in 6 sessions or 6 months. Because that's the other thing. I think a lot of coaches are trained, do not be directive and say what you think, and do not go deep because you're not trained to. I think that's unfortunate because, I will do a little consulting in coaching but I'll make it clear. I don't need to be right. I want you to push back if what I'm saying does not feel right. I'm not the expert in your life. You're the expert in your life, but I'm the expert in transformation. But I'm going to say, this is what I'm seeing. And I think it goes faster that way rather than I'm never going to share what I see. So that's just tip of the iceberg of what the assessment
Yeah,
helps.
I think about that sometimes in coaching dynamics, and I've gone through coaching certification before, and um, I can see lots of value in that type of dialogue that says you have it within you. Let me ask questions to help draw it out of you. But there are other times when somebody is struggling with something, and you can say, "Would you mind if I give you a thought to consider or to put
That's
something on the table?" I think you're right. Not only can it shortcut in a good way, but it can maybe save them person a lot of pain along the way and still get them to the same outcome. As you were going through and you were talking about your upbringing, as you were saying, I'm like, my goodness, that's a really interesting thought there because I know there's a lot we can learn from looking at our upbringing, and I've tried to do that over the years. But when you said that, I immediately thought, well, why would I have been early on sometimes dismissive of people earlier on in my career? And I think it was because I was raised in a world, especially from my father, the things were just black and white. They were good or bad. They were right or wrong. And that I probably brought that on early in my career, which meant if you met these particular things, it's good, and if you didn't, it's wrong. And I've just learned over the course of time that there's a lot more gray than black and white out there, and you
That's
don't figure, you know,
fascinating.
yeah. So I think that's for what it's worth, folks. You kind of just watch me go through that conversation there.
I love it. And I have a tip for people about that. When I was in therapy, those years that work was getting very hard, the therapist, he was a spiritual psychotherapist, he said, don't get me wrong when I say this, but you seem like a judgmental person, not an unkind person, but you make a lot of judgments. It's good, it's bad, it's black, it's white. Like if it's raining, it's a bad day for me because I don't feel good in the rain. Bad. He said, for the next week, I want you to, every time you have a judging thought, I want you to do the following. Make a mental check mark and say, there goes one of those judging thoughts. And then let it go. Don't judge yourself. Let it go. And he said, the reason is we can't change our thoughts if we're wholly unaware of them.
Yeah, true.
So I came back a week later and I said, okay, doc, I think I got it wrong. And we howled. Here's a judgment. He goes, how'd you get it wrong? I said, after 1,128 judging thoughts, I realized I don't not have judging thoughts. They're all judgments. I don't mean they're mean. I mean they're categorical, like what you're
Did
saying.
you say I just had one? It just went on for a week.
I wish it were just one. It was so many. And what it helped me do is, wow, it's really true. You can't change what you're absolutely unaware of. So it really helped me to see, there goes one of those judging thoughts. And then the question is, how do you want to replace that?
Yeah.
How do you want to be different? But yeah,
I've
it's
heard that
important.
explained before that we have the judger and the learner inside of us, and
Yeah,
and both have their place at times.
that's right.
Oftentimes we'll default to one, oftentimes to the judger side. And those questions you said earlier, like why questions, yeah, they can put people on the defensive, like why did you do this, or why, that you feel immediately like you're a child being reprimanded, and that judgment's coming down, as opposed to saying something like, help me understand, or
Yeah,
I have a concern. We said we were going to do this. That type of
right.
thing starts to lean a little bit more into the let's explore it, let's learn.
Curious,
Yeah. One thing
right?
I'm curious about in the most powerful you, you talk about these damaging power gaps that people have, and you told me that you surveyed thousands of people and you saw this in women and in men. Some of
Yes.
these gaps would show up. Could you tell us just a little bit about? I don't want you to tell the whole book because people should go pick it up, but tell us a little bit about like some of these gaps that we have.
Thank you for asking. So, the reason I started exploring this is I said to myself, what's going on that no matter where these people, new clients, are calling me from, no matter what country, no matter what level, socioeconomic or status in their company, they're bringing the same exact challenges. What's going on? So I started looking at all the data from those client sessions, from my courses. What I saw was this: people are missing two huge things: the bravery to face head on what is not working and take accountability to change it, which is all about disrupt your everything. But that's not enough. It's power that they're missing. And I had the beautiful Allison Fergale on my podcast, and she wrote Likeable Badass. And she and I do not see it the same way about power. But I'm not talking about the power over. I'm talking about agency. I'm
Mm.
talking about your ability to be the author of your own life. And I'll go to my grave believing that requires a certain kind of power. So then I said, well, power's too big to just talk about. What do you mean by power? So these 7 gaps, I'll give you a few. And what I talk about and teach and train are 7 bravery boosting paths that are the antidote to these gaps. So, for instance, the first one is I don't recognize my special talents and abilities. You
Mm.
can't imagine how many people leave those questions blank on the assessment. How do you stand out? I don't think I do. What are your talents? Not sure. Wow. That's number 1. I call it brave sight. If we don't know how we're different and special, and I don't mean more special than someone else, I mean unique. What is the talent? What are the sets of talents that you bring? The second is I communicate from fear, not strength. And
Mm.
the antidote to that is brave speak. And wow. And yes, the lens of that book is particularly women, but men have these gaps too. They internalize them differently, and they're typically culturally socialized differently, but men have them. Number 3 is reluctance to ask for what you want and deserve. You hear it every minute. So the bravery boosting path is brave ask. The other paths are brave connection, brave challenge, brave service, and brave growth. In the book, I called it healing, but people are a little afraid of that word. Oh, I don't need healing. It's growth. But one of the biggest ones there is you are what your childhood taught you to be unless you unlearned it.
Mm.
And that could be beautiful stuff, or it could be stuff that holds you back. But if we are what those messages were, they can really be holding us back sometimes. That's the last gap.
As you were going through it, I was just thinking, and I probably have more than one, but I think about the one to get the word deserve always kind of makes me go like that. It is definitely a programmed into me thing
What
in
do you
life.
feel it's really
Um,
meaning? Like
well,
the thing that you
the
resist
feedback I would get would be, you don't deserve anything.
in your childhood, you would
Yeah,
get that. You got to
you
earn
get
it.
you got to earn it, yeah, type of thing. And the idea if like you earn something doesn't mean you get deserve the next thing. That type of thought process plays through my mind a lot. So that's kind of interesting. I imagine people listening to it, to this conversation picked up on other ones, but to me that one word, I'm like deserve. That's interesting.
You're doing just what I would hope people would do when they listen to the book. I narrated it. That was a blast. You can listen to it. There's a workbook. But you're doing what I would hope. Not all of these things apply to everyone, but I defy anyone. I really believe that there isn't one person that can't resonate with something here.
Well,
And
for me, I had to get beyond the idea of like, because I would say, somebody say, oh, you deserve this chance or something like that. I'd be like, I don't deserve anything. I would kind of go in my mind. So I had to say things like, I've earned the right to ask for this, is what I would
there
tell
you go.
myself in my
There you
mind to
go.
make it like work for me. But
And that word, I'm with you. That can be triggering. I mean, I'm a spiritual person. I believe that we all are deserving of a beautiful life, a good life, love, care, respect, being valued. I believe we deserve that. That's what's the word? Inalienable right.
mhm.
But I'm with you. Often I'll teach, just because you're a manager and you're rocking it doesn't mean you're ready for director. That's a different level job. So
Yeah.
we have to craft your story here and make sure that you're doing those upper level responsibilities for
Yeah,
you to get the promotion.
that's a
Yeah,
good distinction too. I like that how you phrase that. There's one side from your spiritual sense of how we see this, and that can sometimes be in conflict with the, what's happening in the job site in people's minds as well.
that's
So
right.
they're really interesting. As you were going through that, I thought, and we had talked about this a little bit before, but let's say I have one of these gaps, or two of these gaps, or three of these gaps. Is there a point where it's like, Patrick, you got so many gaps, you're in
You're in big
no,
trouble.
you're in trouble here. I mean, have you found there's a bit of a pattern? Like if we got a gap or so, we can close this thing, but if we get a few gaps, we need to spend more time together.
I love this question. I thought you were going to say, if you have a lot of them, where do we start? Well, I
Oh,
can
that
answer
we
that
can
too.
answer that one too. Yeah.
Okay, but with all the love in my heart, if you have 4 gaps, we'll always start with, do you recognize how special you are, how unique? And I always say it, and it sounds corny, but you know how we're all are, there's no thumbprint that's the same. That's the truth for every human being. The languages you speak, the trials and the tribulations, the thing you're most proud of, all of it, that you are like no one else. You people are like no one else. You might think you are. So we have to start with brave sight. But when you have 4 or more gaps, or 3 or more, usually there's some childhood patterns. You were taught you're not good enough, or love was withheld. Now, I do not do therapy in the session, but often they will be in therapy, or I'll refer them out. And sometimes we have to pause on coaching, um, because if there's an awful lot that is coming from past training, I found that for some people, there's no amount of talk that's going to help. We need some energy work. We need some release. We need some tapping, which are all, therapeutic ways to release some of the pain that's in ourselves sometimes. But I've never turned anyone away. I've never said, "Oh boy, you're a hopeless case." And it's interesting how they dovetail these bravery boosting paths. Like when I can finally see myself more bravely, I can ask more bravely because I really understand how I stand out. Or I can communicate, or my boundaries get stronger because I really understand what is right and what is wrong in someone's behavior to me. So thankfully, when people are closing one gap, sometimes it closes a few others in
Now,
certain ways.
you work with a lot of people on their careers.
Right.
What are you seeing out there these days, career-wise, that suggests, I don't know. Let me put it that way. Let's leave it at that. What do you see out there from the people you're talking about? What's going on in their world
Yeah, I
career-wise?
keep looking at your book. It's utter disruption and it's very scary for people. And I have ways of seeing the barometer. So I have a big thing going on LinkedIn. It's my happy place. I call it the cocktail party in the sky. If you're not on it, people, you're missing out. It's like you get a chance to imagine being in the room with 500 people around the world who are so thrilling and inspiring to you. That's what LinkedIn can be. But I have services that I offer, and there are, links to those, career, leadership. So I'm getting the LinkedIn services queries from 10 people a day, at least. I'm seeing the shift. It used to be I'd like to build my career. I'd like to, help me decide the next step. Now it's I need a job.
Mm,
And many of them are mid to high level. Many of them are very, very scared. It's a very scary thing, especially when you've loved your career and you're rocking in it, but you feel there's a lot of layoffs or you're afraid AI is going to take your job. In many cases, it won't be that. But I'm seeing that people are very scared that the disruption has made them feel untethered. And that's, in order to work for that effectively, and you live this every day, you have to be very well grounded because there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of,
yeah. I was actually doing something with a group. I'll try to keep it as generic as I can. I was working with this organization, and I was working with an executive group over one of their regions around the world. Okay,
wow,
so
got it.
like Europe or Asia or one of those regions around the world, and they had gone through a lot of change recently of realignment, and they historically had ran for their region had run in the entire business as one unit, and now they're bringing it where it's like, okay, you provide this type of service. So instead of being the entire region, you're
Oh,
going to report to the people who do this service, that type
oh
of
boy.
thing, right?
In
So
another region.
in another part of the world, like halfway around the world, and they were dealing a lot with losing their identity. Like we as a team, I know you're talking about individuals, but it comes up too as a team. We as a team had historically contributed this to our region. Now we're tied to something else. The spotlight is on us differently. We had because we consolidated some resources around the globe, we let some people go. So now we've lost some of our team members. And it was just kind of one thing after another where I could feel that they had lost the sense of identity in this moment as a team. And I would imagine this shows up in individuals as well. And what I said to them is, let's just spend some time talking about that. And we did. And it was interesting to watch a group of executives talk about that loss of identity and what it means and how do we, how do we, and they were kind of longing for the thing that was, but it doesn't exist anymore. And they hadn't really embraced the new thing. And they were just kind of finding themselves in that weird spot where they hadn't like toasted the success to date and said, all right, we're closing that chapter and we're moving on. Do you find individuals kind of in that space?
I'm so fascinated by this, and I have a question for you. Yes, and we were talking before we recorded. The next book I'd like to focus on has a framework I'm calling IPTY: identity, protection, direction, and expression. So, the protection piece is how we tend to protect and want to preserve that identity. We don't want to change. Change is terribly difficult. Most of us don't go racing into change happily. But this is exactly what you're talking about. So every day, this is what I'm working with.
Mm,
What is your core identity? And there are ways to understand and assess that and evaluate that. But most people have never looked at it that way. And then the protection piece, how are you hanging on to it and how does it feel scary now because you don't feel
Yeah.
you can protect it. And the direction is where have you been and where do you want to go now? And not only where do you want to, where do you feel called to? Because sometimes the rug is pulled out from under people and they haven't had a second to think, well, what would I want to do? And finally, the expression and the embodiment of it. A lot of people will say, I'll see people write, I want to get out of this field and I want to do this. And the field they're going to, that they say they want to go to, is what they think they're going to get a job in, but there's no connection to it
Yeah.
from what they did before.
Well, there's a difference between running towards something and running away from something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm interested. Can I ask you this?
Mhm.
Can't not be a podcast host, even on someone else's. I believe that this framework is going to be fantastically helpful with teams. And I've worked with teams in the past, but when you sat with them and talked about identity, can I ask, are teams typically cohesive around what they think the team identity is in your experience? Or are they coming from a really personal place?
No, this particular instance, they were talking about the team itself. They'd been established and together for quite a while, and they
Right.
felt like they'd had an earned reputation as doing something in particular. And that was one of the challenges too, is they started to feel like what they did before so well and they were known for wasn't as valued in this new situation because that need was being met in a different way.
Right.
So, and I don't think it's unique to this team, but I do think it's ubiquitous to where we're all kind of finding the world shifting beneath our feet a little bit and we're trying to figure out, okay, who are we, how do we orient ourselves in this world? So when you talk about is it IFTY, if how do you say it?
IPTY. So yeah,
IFTY.
identity, protection, direction, expression.
There you go. I think that there's a lot that you could write and do around that because
Giggle.
people are struggling and you're really well positioned to help them out.
Thank you for that. Thank you. I'm loving doing the work. It's not easy. It's just like you sitting with this team. It's very multifaceted and nuanced. And sometimes the answers aren't going to come quickly. Like there's a shifting that's required. And some people, aren't quite ready for it. But as we were talking earlier, my first book was Breakdown Breakthrough about the 12 hidden crises working women face, but that was 2008. They're still very relevant. But I do believe that if everyone who's hearing this, if you're going through a big change, when we bloody our head against it, it's going to be harder emotionally, physically, spiritually, in every way. If we can say, gosh, I didn't want this. This is not what I hoped for, but what could be possible that I would be grateful in 3 to 5 years and look back and say, if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be who I am today. If you can ask that question and think, and I'm going through it too. My work is fully disrupted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm now going to serve as an advisor for University of New Haven here for a women's executive program in their business school. And I'm partnering with Hubble, which is an expert advisory platform. I don't think I would have done some of these things if there weren't this amount of disruption in how my business normally flowed. So I invite you, and a lot of people go, oh, I think that's just positive thinking and it's nonsense. Well, we can choose what we think. And if the positive thought helps us thrive, helps us move forward, helps us find new opportunities, why not go that route?
Exactly. Well, in the book we write, in our book with Patterson, we write about being a positive disruptor, which is doing
That's
just
it.
that, the mindset shift between disruption breaks things as opposed, which it can, to the idea of disruption's fertile ground. There's
Oh,
something new
beautiful.
here. Well, I've so enjoyed the conversation, Kathy.
Me
I'm going to put a
too.
link into your website so people can check it out. I'm
Thank
so
you.
glad that James Patterson and I walked in that day and had a chance to talk to you.
Oh, I'm so
And
honored.
we have I guess I would say it's a pattern or a question we ask at the end, kind of our ritual now.
Oh, I love it.
Get ready for this one. Okay, so my producer for the podcast, Jess, and the listeners know this because I talk about it occasionally, challenged me to disrupt myself in a small way, but kind of a big way too, in that I always went to the same place, always ordered the same coffee. On every trip I went on, whether I was home or elsewhere, I would go to that place where the Green Mermaid works. And I still go there a lot. But she
What
said,
is that? I can't wait to
yeah,
find out.
yeah. So she'd say, maybe not going to Starbucks every time is what you need to do. Maybe you should try some other places. And I love you, Starbucks, so you can send me gift cards. That's fine. But I was like, okay, you're right. And I disrupted myself just in a small way. And in the process, I said, I'm on the pursuit of the perfect vanilla latte. So my question to you is there a drink that you're in the pursuit of the perfect version of that drink, or have you already found it? And you're like, this is Kathy's perfect whatever.
Wow, a drink we're talking about.
Yeah, you can extend it to food if you'd like to, but like the perfect thing.
I have to say it, and this sounds like Starbucks is an advertiser for you, but it is my decaf soy latte. That
Ah,
I love it, and I've had it 50 different places, and and they're equally beautiful and delicious, but it's Starbucks for me. That
hey,
one, that one.
no problem. I've probably bought a car there over the years.
I know it's good. It's
Yeah,
good.
but it's nice when you find the thing,
Yeah,
right? It's
at
like
least
that's
that's not what I'm going to have to be searching for. I
well,
thought you were
exactly
going to
right.
ask.
Oh, go ahead.
One disruption is I've moved from where I used to live, which was very near the water, and I would have an hour walk by the water. And I've moved just 20 minutes away, but I'm not 3 minutes from the water. And boy, have I struggled. So, but I'm living here and I enjoy living here. So I have to get over, I have to disrupt myself and that deep attachment and either find water in another way or find other ways to nourish myself in nature. And it can feel very disruptive when the
That
thing
that's
you
the
love.
that's one of the tough parts about disruption. It always starts with self. And it
That's
goes
it.
from there. So, well,
That's
hey,
it.
Kathy, thank you so much for the conversation
Thank
today.
you, Mike. Thank
And
you.
thank
I
you
loved it.
for just sharing your thoughts and insights. Again, we'll put the link to your website. I encourage people
Thank
to
you.
reach out. They can check you out on Forbes. LinkedIn, you've got a huge following on LinkedIn. Your newsletter, I think it's got 125,000 people. So join the party in the sky. What'd you call it? You didn't call it the party.
Cocktail party in the sky. You
Cocktail
don't have
party
to
in the sky.
drink.
Yeah.
Just,
Okay.
I mean, introverts might say that sounds horrible. I'm running, but oh, it's where you can find people that, like you, Patrick,
Yeah.
that
So,
uplift you and inspire you. Why not?
well, thank you so much for uplifting us and inspiring us. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much. Come on my show soon.